big. So this is going to lead to some big changes at Ford. Major fallout at Ford. Now we do know that there was the auto union, the auto workers went on strike last, October, November. They're on strike for about 6 weeks. A deal got worked out. People went back to work. So thank you very much, Brett Foote from Ford Authority, for this article. UAW workers might be striking again at a very important factory. That's the factory making the Expedition and making the Super Duty. And big vehicles at Ford means big bucks. And during the UAW strike, remember, what factory closed? This factory. And it really hurt Ford's bottom line. It's made Ford quite nervous because Jim Farley has even said, there hadn't been a strike at Ford, I think, since roughly about 1973. And that gave a lot of, reasoning for Ford to have models, very important models, produced in America. However, when they produced the vehicles in America, the Mexican-made trucks, their counterparts, have a much lower cost of production. But Ford kept making them here for various reasons, but one of those reasons was because those vehicles were safe. They're getting built well, but Ford's plants, factories, assembling factories down in Mexico have made very good vehicles. The Mach-E's, the Ford Mavericks, the Bronco Sports, the paint coming in on those vehicles are great. Maybe it has to do with humidity. Maybe the US factories up north are a little more humid on the inside, but I'm seeing nicer looking paint on average coming out of the Ford's Mexican factories. So just keep that in mind. You've got the Lincoln Navigator being built here, and you've got possibly 3,000 workers going on strike within the next 5 or 7 days. This isn't impressing Ford. So let's talk about that. So according to the UAW, around 9,000 workers at the Kentucky truck plant plan to strike on February 23rd, 2024. So this is from Ford Authority. Great job, Brett Foote, covering this. You can read this on Ford Authority. So let's continue here. Quoting Ford Authority, if some local contract issues aren't resolved between now and then, there'll be a strike on the 23rd. So these concerns pertain to the UAW Local 862, which the automaker hasn't reached an agreement as of yet. So different factories, you can have an overall agreement reached, but each factory gets to vote on its own because they've got their own individual issues to work through. So there's still issues to work through here, and a few remaining points that the UAW members at the Kentucky plant want addressed and dealt with, including health and safety related matters, minimum in-plant nurse staffing levels. Well, that seems very reasonable. Who wants to work in a factory where if you get hurt, help is 20-30 minutes away? You want that help. That makes sense. You want that help at the factory. And ergonomic issues, to name just a few. So according to Ford Authority, those are the issues. So the UAW Local 862 does have the ability to walk out. They don't have to sign the overall same agreement as every other factory. They can have their own plant-specific agreement. So back in mid-November, 45% of production workers did vote in favor of the tentative contract, and 69% of skilled trade workers. But this factory, nothing's ratified yet. They haven't agreed, and it has caused Jim Farley, well, not just this incident, but early on, the fact that Ford had originally had a very good relationship with the UAW, had avoided strikes since the early 1970s. So higher production costs in the US. As buyers, I can tell you, I like it when my vehicle is built, for us, by us. But Jim Farley saying this could very much affect future plans. So Ford, also Brett Foote, this guy's great. Look at him go. Brett Foote on Ford Authority on February 15th covered this. Ford CEO Farley says UAW strike influencing future plans. So what's going on right there? Well, the vehicles made in the U.S. the new negotiated contract, Ford says, is going to cost them an extra $1.3 billion in, paying workers and meeting worker demand. So that's the UAW strike, what they negotiated. Ford says it's going to cost 1.3 billion off their bottom line, but he did say that they would make this up by reducing inefficiencies. And I can talk as an insider about what kind of inefficiencies they can possibly be talking about. Ford has been working, and we see it in the 2024 order guides for many, many models. Overall, Ford has this new idea, and they're implementing it quite well, but they are reducing the number of variables, the number of models. Let's say you've got an F-150 XLT. Well, let's say the F-150 in all. They want to cut how many F-150 models can exist. With a model, one example of an F-150 can be if you look across all the F-150s and there's at least one difference among them. Let's say before it was in the hundreds of thousands that could potentially exist and all be different by at least one factor. They want to cut that way, way, way down. And that's the case for all the models, so that, more similarities, less choice, but Ford traditionally has been the company with the most choice when it comes to being able to build and get exactly what you want. You could say they're the Harveys, Harveys to hamburgers. You walk into Harveys or Subway and you make it the way you want it. Ford was basically offering that to its customers, offering far more options than so many other manufacturers, probably offering you the most options, and that's going to get cut back. So CEO Jim Farley has revealed that the strike may have even more future implications. So, quote here from Farley, "Our reliance on the UAW turned out to be we were the first truck plant to be shut down," Farley said while speaking at the Wolf Research Global Auto Conference in New York. Goes on to say, "Really, our relationship has changed. It's been a watershed moment for the company. Does this have a business impact? Yes." That's what Jim Farley had to say about it, and use the words. They're going to have to think carefully, in quotations, about where to build vehicles in the future. So previously, the UAW and Ford got along really well and avoided strikes since the 1970s. I really hope they continue. Really hope they continue to make a lot of vehicles, especially the high profit models. They can still afford to be made in the US. I hope they continue to be made in the US and Canada. It's part of why I really support Ford and other manufacturers that build vehicles here, that help employ us, that help us have a thriving economy. So Ford has over the years chosen to continue to build in the US, especially their trucks. Not the case for a lot of GMs and a ton of Rams, though it has reportedly resulted in a $7 billion annual cost disadvantage versus the competition. As such, Brett Foote writes here, as such, Farley somewhat left the door open for the future vehicles. Of course, including the much cheaper EV models. Maybe we thought EV models were gone. Maybe we thought, some of us were getting scared that, the F-150 Lightning would replace all petrol-powered trucks. Let's talk about that more right after we talk about Ford reliability. Folks, if you've made it this far in this episode, please hit that like button. Comment that you made it to the end of this episode. Drop a comment and share this information. Hit subscribe and the bell notification so you don't miss out.